I'm Rob from Barefoot Gaming, and today we review Megaton Rainfall in virtual reality. So for starters, what is Megaton Rainfall? Well, this is a superhero simulator. And not just any superhero simulator, you are like uber powerful. So you are like the Superman of the world. And you're not fighting super villains, you're fighting an alien attack. And you start off with the ability to fly, and then your dad, the character that kind of gives you your missions as you go along, every time you beat a mission, it will unlock more powers. So you'll start off with the ability to, throw energy, and maybe I should touch on the controls. The controls are done with either your motion controls or with a gamepad. As far as a gamepad controller, I'm sure you can figure out, it's pretty straightforward, your sticks, your buttons. But when you're using your motion controllers, now I'll use the Vive wands for example, to fly, you squeeze your controllers and then you point them. If you point them up, you will fly up. If you point them forward, you will fly forward. Now, all of your aim is done gaze-based when you are using your motion controllers. Now, this took me a little bit because by holding in your trigger and flipping your arm across as if you're throwing energy, which you are, it'll always go to a little reticle wherever you're aiming. So you can fly up, aim down, and fire, which is kind of cool. You can fly around looking at stuff, shooting it as you're going. I was reading, some people were complaining about this. This is actually my preferred method. The only other way I could see that they could have implemented this properly is if you were like kind of pointing with one hand and firing. I'm okay with gaze-based controls. Now this is available on the HTC Vive, the Oculus Rift, and I believe PlayStation VR. So 8 different missions and varying around the world. And when I say around the world, it's really neat. The way the game lets you fly up into the atmosphere, and if you want to fly fast, you fly up so that when you're flying across, you're covering more distance. Diving down, the music is actually very well done. And there'll be like a little arrow, so you'll know, from going from point A to point B to wherever. And whenever the aliens attack, there'll be arrows kind of showing you where they're at, which is really good because they can be very hard to see. Now, the cities that the fights generally happen in are very populated. There's vehicles driving around, there's people screaming. When some of the aliens are sucking either the cars and the people up into the air before you attack, or when they're attacking a skyscraper and doing all this damage, the city actually feels like it's alive, which is mind-blowing when you think of the scale that this game runs in. So you can fly up anywhere in the kind of tutorial level. They have you fly through Dubai and you see the different land. This game is not throughout. You're not going to find your home city. There's just cities placed in different areas. There's water that you can kind of fly into if you want. Shoot, when you unlock enough abilities, you can even fly into space and you can go visit Saturn, or you can fly into the sun. On and on it goes. There are 8 missions. And I think I've kind of touched on what you do in this game. But now let's get to a review of this. Now it's $18 Canadian. Let's list some pros, list some cons, and tell you what we actually think. Now, at $18, this is not a big ask. So I always keep that in mind. If this was a $40 game, I'd be quite a bit more critical. And realistically, you can expect probably 3.5 hours of gameplay out of here. The enemies are varied, that's a pro. So you're not just gonna have ships that you have to attack. And I should mention the ships, you can't just attack them anywhere. At least not in the beginning until you get more amped up powers. But there's always going to be a glaring spot, a red spot. You'll always mark it red. Sometimes it'll be on the bottom, sometimes it'll be on the front, sometimes it'll be on the front and the back. You have to hit them both if there's multiples, or however many there are, to kill the enemy. And motherships can only be killed after they've dropped all their stuff and you've killed everything that they've dropped. So, varied amount of enemies, definite pro. I like that. The fact that the cities kind of all feel the same is a bit of a negative, but again, I have to take that with a grain of salt at $18. I'm not expecting Google Earth here that I can fly around in, although if you could do that, that would be way cool. Another pro I'm gonna list is the music. Now, I mentioned that the music was epic. Let me play just a little sample so that you can hear what it sounds like when you're flying through some of these areas. Yeah, That's pretty darn cool. So the cities look good. Maybe there's not super detail on the skyscrapers, but there are lots of skyscrapers. Again, I wouldn't expect more than this in current generation. As far as a con, I'm gonna mention that it's a little rinse and repeat. So you go to a location where the aliens are attacking, and it kind of feels the same every time. The enemies will be different, which is cool, but it doesn't really feel like it's that different a scenario every time. You have to be very careful because all of your attacks can damage the city around, and a city can only take so much damage before you just lose the mission. Luckily, when you lose the mission, it just starts you at the beginning of the mission and you try again. There are comfort modes in this game that remind you that, you know, spending too much time in here in VR might make you feel a little nauseous. It actually did a little bit for me. It wasn't too bad, but I found that because I was having to spin really quickly, I would fly and try to get underneath something and spin really quickly and shoot and fly and spin and fly and spin. However, kind of a major pro to this is you don't have to play this in VR if you don't want. When you buy this, you get the 2D flat version and the VR version for the same price. Now, that being said, playing the 2D version, I actually didn't find very interesting. When I drop into it in VR, it feels entirely different. So the review is just for the VR game. The only other real con I have here is I was really excited to be able to fly off into space, and they restrict you in the beginning, which is fine. You don't have the power. You can fly up into the atmosphere so and so far, but you have to unlock enough missions to give you the ability. I was excited when I flew off into space, and space is not generated as nicely as Earth, right? And that was probably, my expectations were too high. But, you know, flying out to Saturn in the rings, it's neat, but it's boring. You get there and you turn around, try to find another planet and fly towards it. Luckily, when you go into space, your flight is quicker, so it's not the speed that you are flying around the Earth, but that's kind of it. And I think that for their asking price, $18 Canadian, I'm guessing about 16 US, 16 UK, I think the experience is worth it. I think they did a really good job. It's not going to be for everyone, and I wouldn't say this is a game you're gonna just blow through in one session. But if you're looking for something where you want a superhero experience and you just want to play like 20-minute sections, I recommend this. I would give this a 4 out of 5. Megaton Rainfall, the developer, you did a really good job. I liked the game. I suffered a little bit from motion sickness on it. Aside from that, good job. And that's it. That's the review. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe. If you dislike, let us know. Leave a mention in the comments of anything you'd like to see. Always love hearing from you, and I'll talk to you again real soon. See ya.